Shimano's XTR Di2 is finally wireless.
It's taken 7 years to get here, so let's find out what it's really like.
So Shimano's brand new XTR M9200 Di2 finally brings wireless electronic shifting to Shimano's range.
Alex, you've ridden it a chunk. What's it like?
Well, being brutally honest, it hasn't done anything extraordinary.
Okay.
It's just good. But what it lacks in innovation, it makes up for in reliability and familiarity. So to anyone who's ridden the previous generation XTR M9100, which is the cable operated version, it's going to feel really familiar. Like the shifter's the same, the gears sound and change pretty much identically.
So it's good, but it's not really game changing.
Yeah, exactly. For the price, which is about £337 more than XTR M9100, I don't think it's quite worth the upgrade.
All right, before we get onto the full review, here are 5 things you need to know about the new Shimano M9200 Di2 wireless group set.
Number 1, the new rear derailleur mounts to a standard hanger. It's got a B-tension screw and high and low limit adjustment screws. The clutch isn't adjustable, but the derailleur is claimed to be 16mm thinner than the previous generation Shimano ones.
Number 2, the shifter. It's got a full new design with 3 buttons. You've got up, down, and a third one which can be used for accessories from the likes of Garmin, Magic Shine, and others. The paddles sit on a ball joint so you can independently adjust their position under the handlebar, and they offer a single or a double click adjusted mechanically underneath.
Number 3, the new cassette actually isn't that new. It's the same Hyperglide Plus microspline cassette that we all love with those familiar ratios. There are now 2 cassette options with M9200. There's your standard 1051 with the same familiar ratios, but there's also a 945 tooth cassette that uses its own microspline tool, but still fits on that microspline hub.
Number 4, the cranks. There's 2 crank options, a cross-country version and a slightly sturdier one for trail and enduro riding. They've got a new look, a new chainring, which comes in all the different sizes you need, and crank arms come from 160 to 175mm. Number 5.
A full XTR M9200 drivetrain costs £1,460 or $1,870.
And you measured your 170mm cranks with a 32 tooth chainring in the Enduro setup at 1,737 grams.
Ooh.
Okay, so it's time to talk about how good the XTR group set really is. Now Alex, you've been riding it since December when Shimano came over to you and handed you the group set. I went on the official launch, obviously Shimano put it on bikes for me to try it out. So we have both given it a bit of a go. Alex, let's start though with installation and the setup process. How easy is it?
Yeah, well, it's pretty much identical to all 12-speed Shimano group sets that precede it. Standard B-tension setup with the little line on the back of the derailleur cage. Limit screws, exactly the same. Microspline cassette uses the same tool. The cranks use pinch bolts and your standard Holotech 2 tool to tighten up the preload on the bearings.
Okay. And what about the electrical connection between the two? What is the pairing system?
Yeah, once again, super easy. Just click the pairing button on the derailleur and the shifter. Job done. You can do it in the app or you can do it without the app.
Okay. Now, obviously, SRAM have gone for their full mount system where the derailleur bolts straight to the frame, and it's got many plaudits because no B-tension, no high and low. Did you find the setup with those little bolts easy, or was it a bit of a faff in comparison?
Wow, here we go. And this is maybe where the problems start. I actually had to buy a brand new universal derailleur hanger for this bike.
Okay.
So the one that came fitted with the bike, which is just a standard Marin one, and potentially, the bike swing arm, weren't all within perfect spec of that derailleur. And I had to have the micro shift, which is like the trim function of the derailleur, set fully outboard with that stock derailleur hanger.
But did it work?
It did work, but it did cough and splutter in gear 4 quite specifically.
Okay.
It wasn't happy.
But then you changed the UDH, and then did that solve those gear 4 issues?
It did, yeah, it did.
I have to admit, on the press camp, there were no issues. There were obviously Shimano mechanics there, but we went out and did proper mountain biking in the Spanish mountains. I certainly wasn't sympathetic to the shifting. I was banging it up and down as best as I could, just to sort of see how it performs. The feel of the chain up and down the cassette is very similar to that mechanical group set. The one thing I really loved about it though is how quick that shifting is. When you hit the button, the gears shift. And that's something that I really appreciate. What's it been like over the past few months of riding it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. It's been good. It's kind of a backhanded compliment, right? If it's good, it means it fades into the background. You kind of don't notice it. Like you, I'd say it's so similar to that mechanical shifting XTR M9100. It's almost impossible to tell them apart, I think, if you were blindfolded, if you didn't hear the motor clicking.
And if you weren't pressing the buttons.
Yeah, I mean, like the shifter on that XTR, on the 9100, it is light. It is a light shifter, and that's quite a light shifter as well. I would say though, perfect shifts, maybe 60% of the time. There's no noise, it just changes gear instantly. There's no clicking, there's no ticking, there's no anything. And that's because the shift ramps, they just are where they are on the cassette. And unless you're looking at the cassette and timing your shift perfectly, it's really hard to actually line them up, and you're never going to be able to do that. So I think for me, that's probably its biggest pitfall, but it's also its biggest win. You cannot criticize this for slow shifting. If you mash that button 12 times, the derailleur moves 12 times in whichever direction you want it to, exactly when you want it to.
Now, when you're saying 60%, I'm going to call you up on this a little bit, right? Is it because you notice those poorer shifts and they sort of exacerbate a little bit in your mind? Or is it the other 40% of the shifts, they're still good, or are they bad?
I would say that the other 40% are more spluttery. So if it's not a perfect shift, it's got a bit of clicking in there. The other 40% will maybe be like a slight pause in drive where the chain moves across the cassette. You know, it kind of goes clonk or chong are the noises that it makes when it actually changes gear. And I think that those do stand out in your mind more than the perfect shifts. And maybe that adds a little bit of bias there. But swapping between a SRAM bike and XTR bike, you notice the difference. Okay. That SRAM shifting's slower, but there is never a chong or a click or a crunch.
Rarely?
Rarely. For me, a 600 quid derailleur, 1500 quid drivetrain, should it be perfect? Potentially.
On the flip side, devil's advocate, it shifts when you want it to shift, unlike SRAM, which shifts when it wants to shift, which bugs me.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, and I do appreciate that actually you want those shifts to be chef's kiss every time. And, you know, I would agree, they're not always chef's kiss every single time.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I reckon the closest thing that this performs like up to this point is the previous generation Access drivetrains. Super fast, but you can have a crunch or a click in there.
What is chef's kiss, and I think we both agree on this, is that shifter, in my eyes, is the best shifter I've used on anything. I'm not a huge fan of the pod shifter on SRAM. I found it really difficult to get those buttons exactly where I want it. On the other hand, it's got those adjustable paddles, it sits nicely under the bar, it's quite svelte, it doesn't get in the way, and that third button's pretty cool. There will be more sort of additions to the things it can do down the line, I've been told by Shimano, but already, you know, control your Garmin so you can flick through the screens, Magic Shine they're paired with so you can control your lights from it. But that shift feel through those little buttons, a really positive but light feeling click with the double click that I particularly like. It just works. Yeah, absolutely. It really is excellent. And let's not forget the ball and socket joint on the two paddles. This, like, you can totally get this shifter exactly how you want it. And I think the way it mounts to the brake levers as well gives you a little bit more adjustability if you want that super clean cockpit over the SRAM matchmaker system. My only bugbear being that Shimano seems to change I-spec all the time, so I don't even know which I-spec it is. But it is really good if you buy it all integrated with the new brakes, which aren't being talked about in this review, but you'll be able to find information on bikeradar.com. You are renowned for destroying kit and you've been riding this for 4 months, so how has it been? To be fair actually, Tom, that derailleur might look a bit more fragile than other ones on the market, you know, like SRAM's chunky looking transmission. But to be fair, it's straight, it's true. All of the pivots work exactly as they did before. Even the carbon fiber outer cage, it's got some scratches, but it hasn't delaminated, it hasn't started to peel. It's really robust. And I think quite a lot of that is to do with the fact that it's actually a bit narrower and a bit smaller and not quite as long as other derailleurs on the market. So you're less likely to hit it into the floor. Okay. What about the crank arms? Yeah, well, I mean, these have had a bit of rub. It's not as bad as it could be, but also for, you know, what are really quite expensive cranks, they've worn quite fast. And how about the chain, the cassette and the chainring? Now, I mean, the chainring's got this additional bit of strength here, and I think that's for when you like bash it into things, it gives a bit more structural integrity. But in terms of how is it all looking after 4 months of use? Yeah, so chainring's straight, chain showing no signs of wear. The chain's actually a standard M9100 chain, it's not been updated. So it's the old chain, we all know that they're pretty well proven. The cassette, the new finish, it looks really nice.
and the lighter colour means that it doesn't show wear as quickly. But I think like the colouring it is wearing, like the fronts of the teeth edges are like silver, and the same on the shift ramps, it's actually worn the coating off. The chainring's the same, the finish is starting to wear a little bit, but the teeth haven't begun hooking. The only thing that has happened, and this seems to happen on all my bikes, is where the chain exits the chainring at the bottom towards the derailleur, the 3 or 4 teeth around there, they've been worn down by the chain constantly bouncing up and down on it.
Okay, so it seems to be doing all right. I know you're going to ride it some more over the next few months, and I've got a group set coming as well. I'm getting a slightly different one, so I'm getting the 9-45 tooth cassette with a short cage rear mech, which in theory should give even more ground clearance, especially useful on a mullet bike, for example. So look out for some stuff on that down the line. So with the new Shimano M9200 clutch in the mech, they have changed things around. So previously there was an adjustable tension clutch with an on-off switch, which made it quite easy to get the wheel in and out. On this one, they've got rid of the adjustability, they've got rid of the on-off, but what they have done is change the spring mechanism to like a dual spring, which in theory should be better. What's it like to live with though?
Yeah, well, taking that back wheel in and out, I'll be honest, it is a bit more of a pain in the backside.
Okay.
Like, it's harder than SRAM's cage lock, and it's harder than Shimano's previous generation turn the clutch off system.
Okay.
But on the way down, clutch tension actually is really good. The bike's generally quite quiet. It's significantly better than the previous generation Eagle drivetrain clutches. They're actually quite weak. It's a little bit better than transmission ones, but I will say it's still not as good as the adjustable previous generation ones. If you really want to crank your clutch tension on those previous ones to completely stop chain slap, you can do that. With this, it's just not possible, right? It's just a fact of the fact that it's unadjustable. It's set to that tension. That's what you got.
Okay, so it maybe seems a little bit of a shame that they've reduced that adjustability on the clutch on and off switch. However, the proof is in the pudding in terms of performance. Have you ever dropped a chain?
No, I haven't.
Okay. All right then, we've talked performance, but numbers do matter. Let's talk prices and weights.
So this group set here, it's 48 grams lighter than an equivalent SRAM XX. And here's the big one, it's a whole £1,000 cheaper. But, big but, there's no power meter on this drivetrain, but on XX, there is.
I guess the question is, if you want a power meter, then maybe that makes a bit of a difference. But how many people are really using power meters for trail and enduro riding? I don't know.
Yeah, especially people like us maxing out what, 20 watts?
The cross-country racers out there, though, will probably need to know that the XC cranks also don't have a power meter option as standard, so you will have to pay for that yourselves, which is a bit of a thing, especially in cross-country.
Compared to GX, this is actually 266 grams lighter, but it's only £220 more expensive. So I reckon that means you get top flight performance at basically GX level prices. That's not bad.
Okay, we've talked facts and figures, we've talked individual performances of the different components, but give us your overview, your bottom line on the new Shimano M9200 XTR Di2 wireless group set.
Yeah, I think for me, they just haven't been as innovative as they could have been. Performance is good, but it's just not perfect. Setup, there are things you have to do. There are all these little elements that in isolation, you could maybe forgive one of them. But together, I think it just doesn't make it worth my cash. Now, this is where my argument is that they should have looked at what SRAM's doing and just gone, oh my God, it's really good, it's really clever. They've got rid of the derailleur hanger, they've got rid of the adjustment screws. How can we improve on that? Rather than taking the age-old design and just doing a small iterative update, which is essentially what this is, right? It's electric, it's wireless. They should have just ripped up the rule book, gone crazy, and blown everybody out the water. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see something that got my heart racing, got my blood pumping, and really got me revved up. Whereas in reality, we got a reliable old friend.
All right, so it sounds like we didn't quite get something as exciting as Alex wanted. However, if you ride XTR already mechanical and you like it, this is what you're gonna get. It works really well, it does shift really well. That shifter is beautiful. If you want to see a full review of the new XTR group set, head to bikeradar.com. Alex, do you want to introduce the videos that are on screen now?
Yeah, for a full review on SRAM's GX transmission, click on Tom right now.